Back in 1987, while reading an issue of Fangoria magazine, I came across an article about an author, a writer of horror fiction called Clive Barker. The piece was raving about him, stating he was the future of horror. So I picked up one of his books, one of the Books of Blood. And they were right. For me, horror has to be more than just gore. It should toy with the psyche and spark the imagination. And Clive Barker did just that. His style is unique. No tired old cliches like haunted houses, possessions, vampires, creepy kids with special powers, teenagers getting slaughtered, etc., etc. And if there was a familiar element, such as the killer mahogany in the Midnight Meat Train, he added something special that brought a freshness to the story. That story wasn't just about killing. Then, in September of that year, on my honeymoon with my first wife, I went to see Hellraiser, a film not only based on a novella by Clive Barker, but also directed by him. And I was not disappointed. Sure, some of the acting wasn't all that great and the special effects weren't all that special, but there was something deeper going on in this film. It was more than that twisted love affair between Frank and Julia and the blatant sadomasochistic element and that great soundtrack. What really intrigued me was the whole interdimensional aspect, the different kind of hell, and the puzzle box, also called the lament configuration, the key to open the doors to get there. And, of course, the Cenobites. They weren't in the film much, and Pinhead, played by the underrated Doug Bradley, wasn't called Pinhead in the credits, but lead Cenobite. But when they were on screen, I suddenly was able to ignore the film's faults and get sucked right in. Besides looking really cool and being attired in a manner that appealed to my twisted sense of aesthetics, what was it that made them greater than the average horror movie monsters? I quickly picked up a copy of the book the film was based on, The Hellbound Heart, and was dragged down further into the deviant world of pain and pleasure, learning about the Order of the Gash and the Hell Priest. I was excited when the sequel to Hellraiser came out a couple of years later, but honestly at first didn't like the fact that they revealed Pinhead's origins. I didn't want to know the Cenobites were humans. I liked the mystery, but after watching it again, even with its faults, I quickly learned to appreciate the film. It is dark, creepy, and very twisted. Then, a couple years after that, came Hellraiser 3. And when that movie was over, coming out of the theater, I turned to a friend and said, "What the fuck was that?" As far as I was concerned, they ruined Pinhead and the Cenobites. I saw a couple of the many films that came after, but they were just as bad as the abomination that 3 was, or even worse. The filmmakers fucked up the true essence of the Cenobites, that aspect that made them so intriguing. And what was that, you might ask? It was their indifference. Originally, they weren't exactly evil, if you know what I mean. The Cenobites weren't the cliché monsters fucking up the status quo just to be defeated in the end. To me, they were something deeper, something I personally could identify with. Us, we on the left-hand path, are in some ways perceived as monsters to the general public, but like the Cenobites, we shouldn't give a shit what they think. We should be indifferent to society's opinions of our path. We're not on the path to be loved or hated by those outside our circle, our hell. We should go about our duty. And what is that? It's experiencing the pains and pleasures of the path and welcoming those who have, in a sense, figured out the box, the key into our hell. For we're not out to force anyone to join, but only welcome those who have shown desire. For on the left-hand path, we have such sights to show you.